5,000 or whatever, and that will be the case. Hey, look at this. It's my other kitty. What are you doing, Alice? Why, hello there. Today is day 731. This marks 2 years since Elden Ring was first announced at E3 2019 on June 9th, 2019, and we're here at June 9th, 2021, one day before we get to see a new Elden Ring trailer at SGF. And if you're like, whoa, what do you mean we get to see a new trailer? Well, I guess nothing in life is 100% certain, but this is about as close as we're going to get. And before we get into the final round of questions before SGF, I will show you what Omni posted on Reset Era earlier. He posted this GIF that I made for him. And this, it's a Berserk reference because, of course. This is basically saying Keeley has it. And it is surreal to me. And but that is what's happening right here. And it was a fun gift to make, by the way. And just as a little fun, I also made this sort of Keeley as a, little Dark Souls 3 Eclipse symbol. You can see Elden Ring hanging out back there. He's got some golden eyes. So there is that. I think the GIF is the right choice. But this was also fun to make. So there you have that. And with that, let's get into the remaining questions I have. I think this is all of them. If I forgot something, apologies. I have a whole bunch of questions still on my plate, and we are all counting down. We are not even at days now. We are at hours. At the time of recording this, we have like 20 hours left, which is crazy to me. But hopefully I can pass some of the time by answering some more questions, getting some hype, going into SGF knowing that almost without a shadow of a doubt, Elden Ring will be there. And if it's not, this video is going to look so stupid. But I will be crushed because it means I can't trust anyone. From what I know, this is about as sure as it gets. And I am hyped and it is surreal. And I will be live streaming tomorrow. But let's get into the questions. I'll plug that stuff at the end if you're interested. But, check obviously back tomorrow. And I will be live streaming. We will be watching the announcement trailer before we get into SGF because it's all about Elden Ring for me, man. Here we go. So let's get into the questions for today. Angelo Long asks, do you think Elden Ring will release for both next-gen and last-gen consoles? Yes. I think that there will be a PS4, Xbox One version, and then there will be perhaps an upgrade patch or perhaps, just unlock frame rate, better performance on PS5 and Xbox Series X. I think that is the case. Wesley Diogo Ports asks, do you think Elden Ring will have procedural generated areas like the Chalice dungeons? A lot of leaked info talked about procedurally generated caves. In the leaked gameplay, we can see some cave areas. I do not think those are procedurally generated. That was not exactly a strong point of Bloodborne, and I think with the open world, they already have a lot to tackle. And from what I understand, the underground section of Elden Ring is not procedurally generated. So that is authored content, which is not a bad thing. But if you're looking for procedurally generated stuff, I don't think it is going to be here, but I am not sure. I don't think so, though. I think they have enough on their plate just making an open world that adding, trying to give another shot at the procedural generation would be a challenge that I don't see them tackling, but who knows. Matthew Eltringham asks, how do you think the designated jump button will change the landscape of the world and make illusions and hidden walls more hidden? I think in general, a designated jump button makes a lot of sense for me in an open world just because you can make more organic geography and landforms. And if it's a little weird, you can hop over it more easily. You don't need that running start. You can just kind of hop up. And sure, that leads to some sort of silly looking situations, but it also smooths over and allows you to make a more naturalistic landscape. And I think the designated jump button could add a whole lot just because it could lead to these small moments of like Like a big difference, of course, but like Ghost of Tsushima has a lot of like traversal challenges. I don't know if it'd be on that level, but I could still see them maybe hiding something because it could be up a ledge and maybe there's some foliage in front of it and you can jump onto this ledge that's otherwise kind of hidden. It gives them more verbs to design the world with, which in my mind is a great thing. It gives them just more tools. And in an open world, I can see how it would be very beneficial to have that. And you can already see in the leaked trailer that the way the jump button is used, it looks like they're navigating this broken down castle. And you could see stuff like there's like this weird clock that sort of moves. And then they're jumping on these ledges. So I see them using it in sort of like light platforming kind of ways. And, I think that's a nice just tool for From Software to have because it's never been a huge thing, but they've shown with Sekiro that they can handle more traversal options. So I think between that and the mount that there's a lot of opportunities. And, I wonder, can the mount jump? Because that would be kind of interesting too. It might look really silly, but if it can, that would also add a number of traversal options that could be interesting. Tander asked, do you think the boss fights in Elden Ring will be as good as Dark Souls 3 bosses? Um, I am someone who is a little bit on the end of thinking that, especially with the DLCs, that the health pools got a little big. So I do have some complaints about the Dark Souls 3 bosses, but I think mechanically they're obviously very interesting. And if you're talking about pure quality, I really think that they have a great opportunity to make some fresh bosses by bringing in some new mechanics. I think with the Dark Souls 3 bosses, you see bosses that are designed for a very veteran audience and that they have a lot of ways to react to your tricks. And so we already know that the pace of fighting is likely similar to Dark Souls 3. So you can afford to have bosses that can attack as rapidly as bosses in Dark Souls 3, I would think. But then hopefully you also have new mechanics and new systems, like you have stealth. There will be the open world to contend with. So I think in a lot of ways, the bosses in Elden Ring could be the most novel and interesting set of bosses we've had in a long time. Just because, I think it gives them new challenges and new ways to challenge the player, new systems to interact with. So, I don't see them being worse than Dark Souls 3. And I think it would be nice, like, for them to, challenge the player in, instead of increasing difficulty, to give new systems and new metrics to which to test the player to create that new challenge. I feel like Sekiro does that in a lot of ways because playing through Sekiro again, it's really hard the first time. I think it's still a very hard game, and I wouldn't prefer personally for Elden Ring to be harder than Sekiro. I would probably a little less, especially if you're talking about end bosses. But the second time through, it's not nearly as challenging. And I think that's because it's testing different skills and you spend the game learning those. And once you know them, I feel like Sekiro's skill floor is higher, but the skill ceiling is also like, you can be really good. And yeah, I think that I want something kind of in that sense where it's a new challenge. So the first blind playthrough is hard as balls, but once you get these new systems and you sort of understand them, the ins and outs and how to build, especially with it being more of an RPG, that it would be very doable. And I think that would be great. And new challenges and challenging the way I build characters and the weapons I like to use and the way I approach bosses would all be awesome ways that I think they could improve bosses in Elden Ring. Schneider Rizzo asks, do you think we'll be able to ride a dragon? I would be surprised if you were able to ride a dragon. But hey, it's, if they're working on like a mount system, they could always surprise us. That seems like a whole other level of, craziness that I don't know if that seems like a lot to tackle, perhaps. But, so I don't think we will, but I don't think it's something that's totally off the table. I don't know. We need to know more. Tomorrow we'll know more. We need to know more, and then I would have a more informed opinion, I guess, on that. But I don't think we will. I think we will stay with I think we will most likely stick with our mount and build a relationship with our cool elk mount over the game. And I don't see them introducing something, but they could, maybe as just a gimmick for a portion of the game. But I don't necessarily see it, but I don't think it's impossible or off the table. So Doge asks, question for you. Do you think patches will be in this game? And if not, do you think there might be someone that is like patches in the game, like there was in Bloodborne? In Bloodborne, there was Patches the Spider, but in, like Dark Souls 2 and Sekiro, there isn't specifically a Patches, but there's like a Patches similar-ish kind of character. And Patches has been with From Software since Armored Core, so Patches predates the Souls games, just like the Moonlight Greatsword, except for the Moonlight Greatsword is even older. And so for that reason, I think they're both sort of From Software mascots, and I think it's possible for them to show up in any game. I don't think it's off the table because it transcends any series. They've already been across multiple series, so I think it is possible for them to show up in Elden Ring as well as a nod for From Software in their history of games. Matthew Stewart and Serbian Crusader ask, do you expect to see any DLCs or expansions with Elden Ring? I think so. They typically do DLCs. Sekiro is kind of an exception, but I can see, just because it's such a large project, that a DLC would do well. And with Bandai Namco, the Souls games all had DLC, so I think being in a similar situation, if we're just basing it off of precedent, I think it is very possible. Alan G asks, do you think the magic system could possibly tie in with the mount riding somehow, or have a role in traversal, rather than just pure combat magic? One of my hopes for Magic, and especially hearing that they want to improve the magic system and magic melee, or magic and melee combat, is that I hope that Magic could perhaps provide more utility and be something that more builds tap into, but it's a broader sort of system that means like a mage can really take advantage of it, but everyone can kind of dip in. I could see that perhaps, and just being a way to provide utility in different ways. I've mentioned it before. I think that would be cool, and I think that could tie into mount riding. And I think it could be interesting to have different spells that aren't specifically combat related. Like it's more common to have a heal spell, or perhaps something with the mount. I don't know, moves faster, something like that. Just different spells. It would be interesting, and I think one of the ways that they could expand Magic in a way that feels different from Dark Souls is to provide more utility. And being in an open world game, there might be more opportunities for utility magic to have a place in traversal, in movement, in exploration. Dane asks, what do you feel the world building will be? More of an open field with castles, or maybe a lot of mountains? I am hoping that there will be a good variety of different sort of biomes and environments for you to explore in the world of Elden Ring. And I think probably a logical way, if they're to build sort of one cohesive world that connects together, would perhaps be to have, sort of like Shadow of the Colossus, where you have these like small, like natural geographic walls between sections, and then you cross through, like a little like valley or canyon, and it takes you to a different biome. I think that's a very natural way, and a lot of games take advantage of that, having you move through a tight space, and then you get this new reveal. It sets you up for a certain view, and it introduces you to an area while also being able to separate things. So I see that I would prefer to have a nice variety of biomes, and I could definitely see, we've already seen that there's lots of castles, it seems, these multi-layered castles that Miyazaki talked about in an interview. And I think the biomes could be separated by sort of mountainous areas, in that perhaps it's the underground, or there's clever shortcuts through these areas where you can sort of get to different parts of different areas and backtrack through the world in interesting ways. I think it's sort of a logical way to look at it, but just speculation on my part. Night Runner 116 asks, what do you think Mordecai will do once the game is released? I think that Mordecai will give us the daily Elden Ring news. Dun asks, do you think there will be any invasions or any multiplayer aspects? Yes, I do. Omnipotent on Reset Era indicated that there will be co-op and PvP multiplayer like in the Souls games, And that's all we know about it right now. I don't know if we will see anything in the trailer tomorrow regarding this. That would be very cool. But I think those systems are supposed to be in place. How the invasions might work in an open world, I'm not totally sure. But those are details, and there's multiple ways to sort of figure that out. So we'll have to see. Jesse Buckaloo asked, do you think that there will be a crafting system in the game? How would it positively or negatively affect the experience, in your opinion? I honestly think that a crafting system of sorts is one of the more obvious things that you could be doing in an open world game that doesn't feel like it's incredibly weird for a FromSoft game, because you've always gotten upgrade materials, and you maybe grind to get a weapon by fighting enemies. So the movement toward a crafting system, I'm not a huge fan of crafting systems. I'm not just immediately sold on one, but depending on how it's implemented, it could be an interesting thing. And as long as it doesn't lead to mandatory grinding, but if you were to sort of need to collect some components to make some certain armor sets, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to me. But I really don't want the grind. But depending on how they implement it, I could see there being a sort of crafting system, and I think that they could, From Software could do some interesting and unique things with it. I'm not immediately sold on a crafting system, and it's not something I don't like grinding or farming. I don't like excessive sort of just, tedious play. But it really would be one answer to what you do in the open world and what your motivation is to do it. Rounding out my questions and rounding out the SGF question and answer hype series for the Elden Wait is Dan, the man who asks, how many bosses are you hoping for in Elden Ring, and how important are bosses for you in these games? I am thinking 20 bosses. Around there makes sense. That's pretty typical. I think even with more space, that is good. You could have mini bosses and other things to mix it up, like with Sekiro, but I think in the 20 range is good, and bosses are important to me in these games. I think they're often fun tests. They're often some of the more lore important characters. And I think from a narrative perspective, they are interesting. And they usually represent important parts of the story and important moments in the narrative of the game. And just the lore. I love, whether it's Aldrich in Dark Souls 3 or Gwyn in Dark Souls 1, you have these characters and they're built up over the course of hours, where you hear whispers about them and their history and their motivations, and then you finally get to them and you have this big showdown and they're what you're expecting or not what you're expecting. And I think it's a really good experience. And so bosses to me are big, both as a gameplay thing, as to sort of test the player and be these fun mechanical challenges, and then also I think that they're important for the narrative and the lore. And, I love me some boss souls, some boss weapons. I think having those unique drops from these challenging enemies is really fun. And I hope for some boss souls just get that extra story. I love that system. So I hope we have something like that in Elden Ring. And also tail cuts. Man, I would love for tail cuts to come back. Because I just like the extra challenges. And I was actually talking with some friends today about the idea of what if bosses behaved a little differently depending on what time of day you fought them. What if there was fighting a boss at night was this additional challenge and you got a better reward for fighting a boss at night. There's a lot of things they could do with it that I could see From Software taking advantage of, but it's really hard to tell what they had time to do, what their goals were. But I just think it's a cool idea, so I thought I'd throw that out there. So there you have it. These are all the questions. If I missed yours, I'm sorry. I did get a lot of questions, but it has been a complete blast answering these questions. And man, I cannot believe SGF is coming here, and I'm 99.9% certain that an Elden Ring trailer will be there, which means we'll probably get followed by interviews. We'll probably get a release date, my bingo card. I'm thinking we'll get a month, day, year release date. We'll get a specific single day release date, not a window, we will see. But if you want to follow along with me, I will be live streaming tomorrow during SGF. We will start off by watching the announcement trailer. We'll be chatting, having fun, hoping for Elden Ring. And once Elden Ring pops up, we will probably hop off SGF and we'll watch the trailer again. I will get the trailer up ASAP and we'll be just chatting because that is what I am there for. And yeah, I think it's going to be a good show regardless. And I think Jeff is awesome. Keely is great for the industry, and I really hope he gets to deliver Elden Ring for us, and it seems like he does. And he's, like I mentioned it in previous episodes, but he's the right guy for the job, and I just think this platform is a great platform for Elden Ring to be re-revealed, and I can't wait. And the Elden Wait is not stopping, by the way. It is just starting. Elden Ring so far, another series I do that more objectively collects all the information about the games. All of this is just getting started. These last 2 years have been amazing, and your support has been amazing. But this isn't even the beginning. This is like the prologue, and now we're getting into it. And I'm so excited to keep doing these Elden Wait episodes and talking about Elden Ring with new information. I can't wait to use some new graphics and have some new stuff to talk about. Amazing. And having new Elden Ring so far episodes. It's going to be a blast. I can't wait to follow the marketing cycle with you guys. And man, I am so pumped. And so tune in with me tomorrow for the live stream for SGF if you'd like. Otherwise, I will upload my reaction if you're looking for that. I will get that because I don't know how I'll react. For all I know, I could be floating out of my body or crying like a baby, anything in between. But I will see you tomorrow watching SGF.